And I recognize the gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Lamborn. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an important hearing. Thank you for having it. Governor Noem, I enjoyed serving with you in Congress when you were here. In fact, you were on this same committee for a time, and you did such an excellent job, and I know you're also doing that in your position now in South Dakota. Just last month, BLM Director Tracy Stone Manning testified before this committee, and I asked her at that hearing if the new proposed conservation rule would allow simultaneous land use by ranchers, loggers, and other industries. And she said, quote, "The term of the conservation lease would preclude uses that directly conflict with the underlying conservation lease," unquote. I think that a lot of people here in Washington don't understand the West, or they wouldn't make the kind of rules that they're proposing. I know you had a great answer just now to Representative Rosendale. Is there anything you'd like to add about the impact that this rule, should it ever take effect, would have on BLM land and then hence the people and the economy of the state of South Dakota?
Well, let's remember that BLM was established to produce sustained yield and management practices that were out there for conservation efforts. So in every single practice that we're utilizing on BLM land is built in the mandate to utilize conservation. What they're doing in this rule is putting conservation efforts based on no definition of what those conservation efforts are or what they should be, and placing them above every other use. So that in itself turns the entire mission of BLM on its head. And when you have this much federal land in your districts and in your states, it impacts your economy in ways that the ripple effect is tens of thousands of people, tens of thousands of jobs, and it takes their ability to be producers away from them. For me, it's not just on the economic side of it, it's also what it does to people's spirits and to their ability to want to get up every day and go to work. I'm just a big believer that we've lost our nation's work ethic, and we need to remember why we have one. We have a work ethic because we were created to serve other people, to get up every day. It's better for us physically, mentally, spiritually, and having the ability to go out and work on the land and to help it produce and provide for your family would help our nation as a whole be unified and to accomplish something that keeps our economy stable. We've talked for years about the need for not just one part of this country to be successful, not just one part where people can do well and make higher incomes or where they can be more productive. When you guys have a tough economic recession on the East Coast or on the West Coast, often it's the middle of the country that stabilizes this country.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our people are still working.
Thank you. Governor Gordon, you are in the great state of Wyoming, and I admire how it is run. I have a daughter with her family who live there, and I've seen firsthand that it's a very well-run state. During COVID, it was a relief to leave Washington, D.C., where things were locked up so tightly, and be where things are at least halfway normal, such as Wyoming. That was a breath of fresh air. One thing that really frustrates me about the current administration is that they will be deceptive when they say a rule is proposed for one reason when their real objective is another reason. Gas cooktop stoves is one example. They say it's to protect people with asthma. They're just trying to shut down a fossil fuel, and they're not admitting that. They're not being honest. Taking helium off the critical mineral list when it comes from natural gas extraction is another example of that. Do you have suspicions or thoughts or concerns about what the real purpose of BLM's new conservation rule is, and will it have the effect of hurting resource-based industries, including conventional fuels?
Mr. Chairman, Congressman, yes, absolutely. I'm very concerned about the ulterior motives of this. It is to shut down fossil fuel development. And as I've mentioned, one of the things is that our fossil fuel industry is very much invested in conservation. To just segue a little bit to the question that Congressman from Montana mentioned very specifically, our ranch is in core sage grouse area. People that develop minerals do so with an intent to do the best they can to preserve that bird. In our case, we did a range tour, and it was actually the NRCS that came back and said, we can't provide you with any more resource. You're already doing things so well. That's the way we run our ranch. And this conservation rule, if implemented, would suddenly have somebody in Washington say, oh, you know what, we're going to put this in conservation, you can't graze your cows anymore, when very much the role that our cows play in making that range better would be devastated. Our ranching operation would be devastated. That would be true across the West. And so this rule and everything you see in this, and you've got the same issue in Colorado, everything this administration does is about climate. And so you have tremendous regulations being put in place that are holding back our fossil fuel industry, that are costing Americans dearly in the pocket. We had unprecedented rises in the price of oil and gas. And now we're talking about going off of coal and onto natural gas at a time when we can't get a lease out of this administration. We can't get a permit out of this administration. And for those who aren't familiar with the mineral estate, you know, there's a surface estate and a mineral estate. And the way the federal government shuts down anything that goes anywhere near a federal mineral lease shuts down private industry, shuts down private property. It is devastating.
Thank you. I yield back.
So when this time has expired, the chair now recognizes